Hi, my name is Calvin, and welcome to my neighborhood. If you like what you see, just hit the subscribe button. Now, let's see what I'm doing today in my neighborhood.
Oh, breaking news, everyone. Well, today we're going to find out, did white people actually cause slavery? Well, it's been on my mind for this whole week, and we're going to find out by visiting Mr. Antonio's classroom. Well, I'm sure we're going to get a lot of answers to this big question, and I'm going to be walking around here in the studio to find out. We put television cameras in the classroom so we can find out all about what's going to happen in the classroom today with Mr. Antonio. And I'm sorry, everyone, but there seems to be a squirrel that just walked onto the set. And, I want to get a big chance on television. I can't get that with a squirrel walking on. You want to watch what's going to happen too? I see. Okay. Well, we're going to go ahead and get started. Let's start by visiting Mr. Antonio's classroom. Okay, everybody. Glad you're here today. And we're going to start a topic today, really about African American history. We're going to begin talking about slavery in the United States. So, everybody have a seat. And, okay, Ari, you have a question? It looks like you want to say something right now. Not too sure what it is, but let me hear it.
Okay, now we're going to learn about slavery, and I'm sure by the end of the subject, the white people will be the bad guys again. So, let's just hear what you have to say.
Well, Ari, why don't I just begin to talk about everything, okay? And I'm sure that'll answer some of your questions. Now, why did Europeans bring people from Africa to be slaves in America? Well, in the Americas. And when I say Americas, I mean North and South America. Why did slavery start? When European explorers came to America, they discovered a vast land. They were primarily looking for gold and silver. Although gold was found in South America, North America did not offer such minerals. Attempts to make indigenous people slaves was a disaster. It just did not work. Europeans had to tap into another source of free labor to have slaves from people that were not familiar with the land. Because people that were familiar with the land could escape. And if your slaves escaped, well, you would have nobody to work the land. So, people who were not familiar, like I said, could escape because if you were familiar with the land, you would know where to go. But if you were not familiar with the land, you wouldn't know where to escape to. Europeans went to the African continent, which already had a legal and socially acceptable enslavement system already in place.
Wait a minute, Mr. Antonio. I have to cut you off. Now, Africans, of course, as you know, well, we're the good guys, and we didn't have that. Yeah. White people would like sneak up into you and just snatch people and just run away with them. And that's how we learned about slavery. Where I come from, yeah. So, that's what happened? Yeah, I'm from Nigeria, so I should know everything.
Okay, Adela Ray. Usually when we have a question in class, we raise our hand and wait till I call on you. Okay? So, no more interruptions for right now. Now, for centuries, Europeans came to Africa to obtain slaves. African slavery was practiced throughout the continent. Now, there were three types of slave trade that went on in Africa. There was the Trans-Sahara slave trade. Slaves were transported or across the Sahara Desert. Most were moved from sub-Sahara Africa to North Africa to be sold to Mediterranean and Middle Eastern civilizations. A small percentage went other directions or went other places. Now, it's estimated a total number of black slaves moved from the sub-Sahara Africa to the Muslim world would range from 11 to 17 million, and the trans-Sahara trade routes conveyed a significant total number of Africans that were moved. Now, there's one route that had moved about 7.2 million slaves across the mid-Sahara Desert from the mid-7th century until the 20th century. Then there was the Indian Ocean slave trade, sometimes known as the East African slave trade or Arab slave trade. This was a multi-directional slave trade, and it changed over time. Africans were sent as slaves to the Middle East, to the Indian Ocean islands, such as Madagascar, and to the Indian subcontinent, and later to the Americas. So, and the one that we're probably more familiar with here is called the transatlantic slave trade. This involved the transportation by slave traders of enslaved African people, mainly to the Americas. The slave trade regularly used a triangular route, and its big thing was the Middle Passage, or crossing the Atlantic Ocean, and existed from the 16th century to the 19th century. The vast majority of those who were transported in the transatlantic slave trade were people from Central and West Africa that had been sold by other West Africans to Western European slave traders, while others were captured directly by slave traders in coastal raids.
Oh, whoa, wait a minute, Mr. Antonio. Now, I'm from Nigeria, so I should know things. Are you telling me that other Africans, like me, sold their brothers and their sisters and their other people that they knew to white people? Hey, I thought that only the white people were the bad guys. So, you're saying that Africans sold each other? Oh, I knew about the coastal raids, but I didn't know that Africans sold other Africans into slavery. Ah, I didn't know that either. Ah, this is interesting. Go ahead, Mr. Antonio. Tell us the rest of everything.
You guys are really getting into it. Okay, so that's a good thing. All right. Europeans gathered and imprisoned enslaved Africans at forts along the African coast, and they brought them to Americas, to the Americas. That's North America and South America. The majority of slave trading nations, in order to trade, well, the majority of the slave trading nations, I can tell you who they were: Portugal, Britain or England, Spain, France, the Netherlands, and Denmark. Several had established outposts along the African coast where they purchased slaves from local Africans. These slaves were managed by someone called a factor. And a factor is somebody who actually sold their African brothers and sisters, white people, so that they could make money. And the factor was, that's what the person was called, a factor. They were Africans, okay? And they were established on or near the coast to expedite the shipping of slaves to the New World. And slaves were imprisoned in something they called a factory. And those were holding places while awaiting shipment. Karen estimates that about 12 to 12.8 million Africans were shipped across the Atlantic Ocean over a span of 400 years.
Okay, I got my hand up this time. Look, Mr. Antonio, I need to tell you something. In Nigeria, the guys would come and they would steal people, and that's what I was told, and that's what happened. Yeah, they didn't have those types of forts in Nigeria, so yeah, and just to let Ari know, um, yeah, hey, Mr. Antonio, they didn't have those places like that in Nigeria. A fort where it kept enslaved people, and they didn't do that in Nigeria. I know they didn't. They couldn't have.
Well, Adela Ray, that's not really true. The vast majorities of African Americans in the United States and also in places like Brazil are from Nigeria. Quite a few came from Nigeria. Now, there were different trading posts, but there was a place called Barafu Island, which was known as the point of no return. It's a popular historical island in, I believe it's Barigui, a town located um, in Lagos, Nigeria. It's in the southwestern part of Lagos, near Bien. So it's symbolized by two poles slightly slanted towards each other and facing the Atlantic Ocean. The island is a major slave port after it was opened in 1473. The transatlantic slave trade era. According to the Nigerian historians, as many as 10,000 slaves were believed to have been shipped to the Caribbean and the Americas between 1518 and 1880 from the island. White Europeans got their free labor to grow something called cash crops. Now, remember when I said there wasn't that much gold and silver and everything in North America? Well, they were cash crops. And let me tell you what a cash crop is. It's something like sugar cane, where you get sugar from, tobacco, where we get cigarettes and cigars, and much later cotton. Cash crops were something that you could plant and you can make a lot of money. You can make a person very rich. Well, America had a lot of land, which landowners use to become millionaires. So that's what some of them did back then. I want to just stop for just a minute. Remember what I told you last week. Now, slavery was wrong, but I want you to see that black people or Africans participated in slavery just like white people did. So, who caused slaves to come to the United States or to the Americas? It was actually Africans that sold them to white Europeans. And the white Europeans, because they wanted to make money, brought them to the United States or to the Caribbean and to South America so they could use them as cheap sources of labor so that they could make money. Because not only were they cheap sources of labor, they were free. You pay for your slave, and that was it. You didn't have to pay any more money.
Okay, Mr. Antonio. Now, I'm trying to figure this out. Were the white people the bad guys this time? Or were the black people the bad guys this time? Was it the Africans? Or was it the white people? I'm still confused. I mean, doesn't that make black people or African Americans mad at white people? Because, we brought them here and to the United States. Well, my ancestors didn't, but they brought them here to the United States, and what they did was they made them, work for free, and just tell us more about it.
Okay, everybody, you keep talking about good guys and bad guys, or good people and bad people. Well, here's what happened really. White Europeans merely participated in the slave trade which was already taking place in Africa. Human trafficking was legal, and it was wrong too. So, the true people that were responsible for African slavery were first Africans selling their own people to each other. That practice set up everything. Later, Africans would sell their own people to Europeans for profit. The slavery in America, which includes, like I said, North America and South America, was the result of whites buying people from Africans for free labor in the United States and in the Caribbean, places like that. So that's really what happened. Now, white people did play a large role in the brutal treatment of Africans while they were here in the United States, but also the slave forts in which they were kept they were kept under harsh and inhumane conditions. But those slave forts were run partly by some Africans and some whites too. So understand that when we talk about slavery, it was an evil system and people are evil. Remember what I told you before. When you learn about history, you learn about good people and you learn about bad people. Okay? So right now we're learning about some bad things that people did to each other. Now, I want you to understand Ari and also Adela Ray. And Calvin hasn't said anything yet, but I want you guys to understand, okay, I want you to understand something. That most white people living in the United States came here as immigrants and they wanted to have a brand new start in life. They worked hard. They lived in small farms and in small communities. They did not own slaves. Now, they worked real hard and they lived in places like Philadelphia and they lived in places like New York. They lived all throughout the country. And most people that lived here didn't own slaves. Now, there was a lot of people that lived here that sympathized and thought that, well, slavery was a bad thing. But I want you to know that what really happened was there were rich landowners. Like, remember, I said there was a vast land in the Americas. And what some people did was they became big, wealthy landowners that owned a lot of land. And they put people to work on there for free. And by putting them on the land to work for them for free, they made a lot of money, okay? So that's what they were trying to do. And they did treat their slaves very, very mean and harsh. But that's because they were bad people and they were evil. Now, they just happened to be white. And in Africa, they sold each other, sold their own brothers and sisters and mothers and fathers or whatever it was to white slave traders because they weren't right. They were just looking at trying to make money. So that's really how slaves came to the United States. And we estimate that there was over 12 million people that were taken from Africa to become slaves in the United States. Now, next week, we're going to learn a little bit more.
Oh, I see. So, white people weren't really the bad guys. You just had bad people all over the place. You know, we learned at the temple that Egyptians made Hebrew slaves. Oh yeah. So, and the Egyptians were Africans. Oh wow. You know, I'm learning a lot today, and I'm learning that evil people just did evil things, and that's why we had slavery. Oh, okay. What did you learn, Adela Ray? Well, I learned that Nigerians were just like everybody else. We have some good Nigerians and some that just were concerned about money. Wow. Yeah. Never thought about that before. Yeah, usually when we learn about slavery, we learn about how evil people were. But I guess you're right, Mr. Antonio. Yeah, that evil's not confined to a skin color. It doesn't matter what you are. I never knew that about Nigeria, too. A point of no return. That must have been something sad for them. Wow! Oh, okay. Well, I'm glad I learned that lesson, but, boy, what a hard lesson to learn.
No matter how bad we think it is, we need to learn history so we don't repeat it ourselves. You know, it would be horrible if we started the slave trade all over again because we never understood nor did we ever know what happened in the past. Well, guys, it's been a little bit long and I know you guys are tired. So that's the end of everything we're going to be doing today in class. And I'll see you guys again next week.
Thank you for watching Calvin's Neighborhood. Now, if you'd like to see us live or online, just visit www.harveysampuppets.com. And thank you for watching. Hope to see you again real soon. Bye!